prices are up by over 16%. The world's central banks, they're buying gold in large quantities and they've been at it for a while.
Why is everyone talking about gold right now? Just when you thought prices couldn't climb any higher, gold in India has surged past a new milestone. Yesterday, the price for 10 grams of pure gold crossed the 73,000 rupee mark. To put that in perspective, that's about $875. At the start of the year, these prices were much lower. What's causing this golden rush? At the beginning of the year, 10 grams of gold cost about 65,000 rupees, or almost $780. Recently, prices in India have shot up dramatically, and it's not just happening here, it's a worldwide trend. Globally, gold prices have risen over 16%. This trend started almost 2 years ago with China. The country's central bank, known as the People's Bank of China, began buying huge amounts of gold. To give you an idea, they've purchased 225 metric tons of it. In 2023, Beijing bought more gold than any other central bank in the world, and they're not stopping there. From January to April, China kept adding more gold to its reserves. In fact, they've been stocking up on gold since November 2022. Let's find out about what's behind their relentless pursuit of gold. Why does China have so much gold? Right now, they own over 2,200 tons. But why do they want all that gold? One reason could be fear, especially because of recent events around the world. For example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, it made a lot of countries nervous. This might be another reason why China is buying so much gold. Why is China stacking up on gold? One big clue comes from recent global events. When Russia invaded Ukraine, Western countries responded by freezing Russian money. The West controlled about 300 billion of Russia's wealth that was held in their banks. This move might have made other countries, like China, think about keeping their wealth in gold instead of in foreign banks where it could be frozen. Why did the West freeze Russia's money? When Russia invaded Ukraine, Western countries blocked access to around $300 billion that Russia held in foreign accounts. This money was a big part of Russia's reserves, meant for international trade and expenses. There's even been discussion about transferring this blocked Russian money to Ukraine as compensation. Despite discussions, Western countries haven't yet agreed to give this money to Ukraine. However, Russia still can't use its funds. Beijing is watching the situation closely and thinks it could happen to them too. Because of this fear, China is losing trust in Western banks and is buying lots of gold as a safety measure. As of last month, China had over $3 trillion in American dollars. They haven't given up on the US dollar completely, but they are spreading their investments to include more gold. And China isn't the only one doing this. Other countries are also diversifying their reserves. From June last year to January this year, at least 5 other central banks also kept buying gold for 8 straight months. Which countries are doing this? They include Turkey, India, Kazakhstan, Jordan, and the Czech Republic. India in particular has been buying a lot of gold, with its purchases reaching almost a 2-year high last month. In recent months, India bought over 13 tons of gold. So how much gold does India have now? Their reserves hold more than 800 tons of gold. As of January 2024, the Reserve Bank of India holds 800 tons of gold, which is believed to be worth over $50 billion. In March, India's total reserves were about $645 billion. This means that a significant portion of India's reserves is held in gold. Although gold might not make up the biggest part of India's reserves, its increasing amount is significant. There's a noticeable trend where central banks around the world are aiming to reduce risks. They want diversified reserves, so they're not relying solely on one currency or financial investment. If you're paying attention, this shift is quite clear. Thinking about investing in gold? Wondering if now is the right time to buy? If you're worried about prices, you might want to hold off for a bit. The gold market is expected to stay unpredictable, and prices have already reached record highs. Experts believe the prices might even go higher. Just like central banks, it's wise not to put all your money into one option. Consider spreading your investments across different areas to keep your finances safe. For over 50 years, the US dollar has been the top dog in global currency, no questions asked. But the war in Ukraine might change that. Countries are starting to lean towards a more balanced world, where no single currency reigns supreme. Now, more nations are considering using other currencies for trade. Countries hit with sanctions have been trying to rely less on the US dollar for a while, but even those not facing sanctions are looking for alternatives. For example, oil-rich countries are thinking about trading oil using China's currency, the yuan. India is also working on settling trades with other countries, using its currency, the rupee. The global reserve currency is supposed to be stable, easy to trade with, and not controlled by any one country. But when the US froze Russia's central bank assets, it made people question whether the US dollar is still a reliable reserve currency. Plus, Fitch recently downgraded the US, saying that its finances have been getting worse for the past 20 years. The US Treasury Secretary disagrees with Fitch, saying their decision was unfair and based on old info. However, we think Fitch got it right. With the US debt soaring by $13 trillion under President Biden and Trump, and no sign of the government getting its spending under control, a downgrade was overdue. Plus, both the Democrats and Republicans recently agreed to let the government borrow more money until 2025, which doesn't look good. Fitch's move is like catching up with what S&P did back in 2011, and it shows there are serious problems with the US debt situation, which is expected to get even worse in the future. Even though there are some doubts about the US dollar, it's still the top choice for most countries because it's easy to trade, and there's a lot of it around. So the move away from using the dollar, called de-dollarization, is just starting out. But many countries outside the Western world are determined to go down this path. They're not happy with how the US uses the dollar to punish its enemies, both politically and economically. Experts in geopolitics think the US might be falling into what's called the Thucydides trap. That means they could start using sanctions and other financial tactics more openly, which could lead to more conflicts. After President Trump's trade war and the pandemic, the world is changing, and we might see less global cooperation and more groups forming. This means we might need a new main currency for the world. It's a bit uncertain right now, and there are lots of different ideas, like using different currencies, swapping money between countries, or making new payment systems. But we think gold could benefit from all this change. We're already seeing signs of countries using less US dollar, which means they might put more of their money into gold instead. Central banks around the world are buying more gold, making up about 25% of all gold bought. This shows they are looking for other options besides the US dollar. In the past 12 years, central banks, especially those in emerging markets, might have added a whopping 6,815 tons of gold to their reserves. And get this, not a single ounce of gold has been sold by global central banks from 2010 to 2022. Central banks have been telling us they still really like gold because it's a safe way to keep their money, it's easy to trade, and it helps protect them during tough times. All this shows that gold is kind of overlooked and not given enough credit. But there's a lot of potential for it to go up in value in the future. We all know the US dollar is the top choice for central banks around the world to keep their reserves. But in recent years, the dollar's popularity has been slipping. Right now, it makes up 58% of central bank reserves, down from 69% in 2014 and a big drop from 75% in 2000. That's a decrease of 23% over the past 23 years. So what's filling the gap left by the dollar? Other currencies and, more recently, gold. A report from the World Gold Council, mentioned in an April article in the Financial Times, shows the results of a survey of 83 central banks, and it states the same thing. As the dollar's status as the top reserve currency slowly declines, we need to think about how this could impact our economy in the long run. We'll talk more about this later. Meanwhile, gold prices have been doing pretty well compared to other investments over the past couple of years. Do you think people will eventually use gold instead of currency? So share your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Until next time, see you all.